Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, March 26, 2026 edition, 2026 edition of Douglas Now Live. I am Robert Preston Jr. here in our Douglas Now Live studios. Normally on Friday, when I used to do videos on Friday and we were on the radio and live streaming, which that desk is immediately to my right. On Fridays, I used to wear a t-shirt. I called it, T-shirt Friday or, whatever. And I would try to wear a t-shirt that spotlighted or highlighted, advertised, not really the word I'm looking for, but you know what I'm talking about. A local organization, group, community, what have you. And I'm doing that again here tonight on Thursday. According to my clock here on the computer, it is 9:32 p.m. So we are about 2 hours and 28 minutes away from Friday, and that's close enough. So we're going to observe T-shirt Friday late on Thursday. Speaking of the clock, I want to lead off with that subject. Now, what we're going to do tonight is a little bit different. I'm going to talk about a couple of stories that are more at the state level, some things that have come out of the legislature that are interesting, and some things that people have had the people across the state will have opinions on. So this is just kind of a general discussion here tonight about a couple of things. So I mentioned the clock, right? So on Monday, the legislature passed a bill requesting, stipulating, whatever. Actually, it was in the Senate approved it on Monday. A bill that would change Georgia's time zone to the Atlantic time zone. And in doing so, we would observe Atlantic Standard Time, and we would do that year round, which means we would not be rolling our clocks back. Now, this does not mean that that's going to happen. And I had some people, I put a link to a story off WABE that explained that a little bit more. And I had people send me messages and ask me, when is this going to take place? Well, I don't know. I don't know when it will take place. And it may not take place, because we can pass all the bills we want to pass, but these kinds of things don't happen at the state level. They have to go through some type of federal approval. Now, in 2021, we passed a bill that would observe daylight savings time year round. Now, daylight savings time is what we're in now. All right. This is what I call the summer time. All right. When we adjust the clocks in the springtime. All right. We spring forward, fall back. So when we spring forward, this is the time that we're on now. Okay. Where we have more daylight in the afternoons. Right. Standard time is when we have more daylight in the mornings. Now, I have not sat down and done a deep dive into this. I have not thought seriously about what the ramifications are, what it would mean. All I know is I like daylight savings time a lot better than standard time. And that goes against what I would typically believe. What I would normally say is, let's leave it the way the good Lord intended, which is standard time. All right. That's the way the time should work. All right. But we've changed it and altered it to give us a little more time, a little more daylight in the summertime. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Now, if we left it alone in the fall, I would probably be okay too. Or if we left it alone in spring. If we just let the sun and the moon and nature and all of that stuff move the way it's supposed to move and to operate the way it's supposed to operate, I think I would be okay with that, because those changes in the daylight hours and the nighttime hours and all that stuff, they happen gradually, so you have time to get used to it. I don't like that sudden change in the fall when we roll the clocks back and then it gets dark earlier. Okay. And it used to not bother me like it does now. I guess it's one of the things about getting older, right? I don't like it. It messes me up for about a month. It really does. And I'm in a terrible funk. I don't feel good. I don't have any energy. I just don't like it. All right. So again, and I will tell you this on another note, and this is not something that really that really affects a lot of people. But when it comes to going to ball games in the afternoons, whether it's football, softball games, what have you, I like that extra hour of daylight to get pictures because my camera is very old and I need a new camera. I'm going to have a new camera for next year, but up until now, through now, I don't have a new camera, and it's a lot easier to get pictures during the daylight than it is at night. If you watch my pictures that I use from night ball games, they're terrible. They really are. My camera's 20 years old. It's 20 years old this year. You imagine how much technology changes in the course of just a few months. What has technology done in 20 years, right? It's a 2006 model camera. So I need to buy a new camera, and I'm going to, but I'm putting it off. But I like the extra hour of daylight so that I can I can get better pictures when it needs. But that's, again, a small sample size. I like daylight savings time better. Okay. Now, how difficult is it for states or communities within states to change time zones? And there is some precedent for that to happen, but it typically happens in communities that are on the edge of a time zone, right? So, one example, I believe that Phoenix City, Alabama is in the Eastern time zone. The state line is actually, in that part of the country, our part of the country. The state line is Georgia and Alabama, right? So Alabama is in the Central time zone. Georgia's in the Eastern time zone. But I want to say that Phoenix City is in the Eastern time zone. All right. I hope I'm right on that. I did not look that up, but I have been told that, right? Because Phoenix City and Columbus are tied so closely together. A lot of people live in one of those communities and work in the other one. So it's just easier if they're on the same time zone. But you go farther west too, and you look at the edges of the time zones. There's some communities that have petitioned over the years to be in a different time zone other than the one the rest of their state is in. So there is some precedent for that. But what has to happen, right, to change time zones is the Federal Department of Transportation has to approve it. Now, for the action that we took in 2021, Congress has to approve it. So either way, there's got to be federal approval. It doesn't matter which route you go, if you just want to not observe the time changes, or if you actually want to change time zones, there has to be some type of federal approval. Of course, we passed, again, that bill in 2021. Congress has not made a move on that, and they're probably not going to. We passed this bill. Now we've got to wait and see if the federal DOT secretary approves it. And, in reading and trying to figure out what happens next, there's no real timeline. It's up to the discretion of the secretary. So it could be something that happens quickly. It could be something that happens months or years down the road, or it could be something that does not happen at all. So, but for the sake of the discussion, and there were a lot of people who commented on it, I wish we'd do it, right? I wish we do it. It's not going to cause significant problems, I don't think. But I haven't sat down and done a deep dive into it, but I know for the place that I spend most of my time each year, which is in Georgia, I like the extra hour. Okay. I really like the extra hour. So my preference is I hope that the federal DOT secretary does in fact approve our measure and we're able to observe daylight savings time year round. So if we're not going to do that, I wish there was a way that we could just observe standard time. I could take either way, I guess is what I'm saying. I could take it either way, as long as we just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Either let nature work the way nature is going to work, or if we're going to manipulate it, let's try to manipulate it and leave it alone. Something that I always think about with time changes too, and this is just kind of an interesting thing. This was told to me as a Native American proverb, but I have a feeling it is not a Native American proverb, although it certainly could be, that only the white man would take a blanket and cut 2 feet off of the front of the blanket, sew it onto the back of the blanket, and then believe that he has a larger blanket. And that's pretty funny and very accurate. All right. That's something that we would do, that our government would do, and act like we've actually added more hours to the day or something. We haven't, that's not the way it works. But that is fun. I think about that. I think about that quite a bit. It is pretty funny. So anyway, this is passed, and I hope that the DOT secretary does approve this and allow us to move into the Atlantic. What's interesting is in the Atlantic time zone, no state in the United States, in the continental United States, is on this particular time zone. Now you get up into Canada, there are a couple provinces up there that are on that time zone, and then you go down into the Caribbean, a couple of places down there, including Puerto Rico. So we do have a U.S. territory on the in the Atlantic time zone. So it really wouldn't alter anything too much. We would just observe daylight savings time year round. I'm in favor of it. I want to see it happen. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will talk cell phones. When someone is injured in an accident, they need three things: answers, a plan, and a legal team they can trust. That's what you get at the law office of Bruce Edwards in Douglas, along with a healthy dose of old school toughness and modern strategy to boot. We are here to help. Give us a call and let us work for you. Another issue that always strikes a nerve when it comes up: cell phones in schools. All right. So earlier this week, the Senate unanimously passed a measure. It doesn't get much more bipartisan than that. Unanimously passed a measure that would ban cell phone use on campus for high school students from the morning bell until the dismissal bell. People in the know call this a bell-to-bell ban. The bill would add public high school students to the current law, which passed last year and banned cell phones for students up to the 8th grade during instructional time. The bill also calls for local school boards to establish procedures for students to use a phone during other instructional opportunities that do not occur on school grounds, such as dual enrollment or work-based learning programs. I think it was 21 years ago when I first engaged in this debate, before we had smartphones, when we had the flip phones and all we did was send text messages, make phone calls. You could take a picture with those old flip phones, but they weren't very good. So in short, cell phones did not have the place in our culture and the place in our daily routine that they have now. And I said, by all means, ban cell phones in school. You shouldn't have cell phones in school, right? And I remember being on some media platforms, those that we had available at the time, and talking about this with folks. And not everybody agreed with me then. When I look at this particular measure, in principle, I think I agree with it. Cell phones cause problems. Cell phones are distractions. I mean, I'm sitting up here right now with my cell phone right here. It is such an important part of what I do. It's such an important part of my routine that I can't get on here for just a few minutes without having it right here. I do use it, of course, for, all the mind-numbing activities that we use our phones for, watching stupid videos and things like that. But also, when it comes time to work, my cell phone is an invaluable tool. And I graduated from college. I was one of the last real, I hate to say generation, but maybe one of the last groups, or to use an educational term, cohort, to graduate without using the internet. All right. I've never done a paper. I've never done a project in school where I cited an electronic source. All right. So I went to the library. I checked out library books, walked out with a stack of books, and trying to keep them from falling all over the place, and sat down at a table and spread my books out and went through and tried to read and stick note cards into pages that I was going to quote and come back and do that kind of thing. All right. Now I think about what it would be like to be in college or to be in high school. And there are some legitimate, very legitimate uses for cell phones in education when you're doing research. You have the world at your fingertips. If you want to know the answer to a question, all you do is type it in, and there it is. Now, on the flip side, sometimes the questions to the tests can be found like that. And all you have to do is Google a question, and you can get the exact question and the answer and an explanation of why that answer is right. And as we move forward with the AI generation, it's going to get worse. So I can see both sides of it. And quite honestly, I don't know how you fix it. I really don't. I guess teachers might say, well, we have computers in our class. Every child in our classroom has access to a Chromebook or a laptop or some type of computer that when it comes time to do their research, to work on their papers or projects or whatever it is that they do now, they have access on those computers during instructional time. They don't need their phones. I'll buy that if in fact that is true. If every single student in every single school has access to the web via a school-provided device, I'll go along with that. And I don't say that as an indictment against our system because I don't know. I would assume that they do. All right. I would, my wife Heather's a teacher. I believe all of her kids have Chromebooks when they're in her class. Right. But this is elementary as well. So I think you could solve the dilemma or the question that I'm asking here if you have access, you being a student has access to a device in every class. All right. I also see some applications where, and the story I just quoted off the Georgia Recorder talked about dual enrollment or work-based learning programs where cell phones could be used there, and there could be a need. So how do you, again, how do you legislate that? I guess if you're not on school grounds, it doesn't really matter because what people are worried about, what teachers and lawmakers are worried about are the distractions that cell phones lead to on campus and in the school learning environment. So in theory, I don't have a problem with it. Practically speaking, I don't know how you enforce it. If you use something, I'm not being funny here. If you use something like the Yonder pouches, like they do at the 9th grade academy, I remember people were going crazy about that. All right. But we don't hear anything about those anymore. It seems to work pretty well. Now, I know that parents are going to say, well, I want my kid to be able to call me if there's an emergency. Well, that's not a good idea for a lot of reasons. All right. By the time the kids find out about an emergency, hopefully the school would be locked down, and the safest place for those kids to be in the event of an emergency, and if we're talking about an active shooter or some threat like that, is locked in a classroom. Because unless something has changed in the last couple of years, there has never been an active shooter breach a locked classroom. If teachers lock their kids in the classroom and do not open that door for any reason while such an incident is going on, those kids are safe. The teacher's safe. So the safest place for a kid to be in some type of situation is locked in a classroom. All right. And there are a lot of reasons why kids don't need to be making phone calls in the event of an emergency. Now, parents are going to disagree with me on that. I guess the best way I could put it is I don't have a kid in the school system anymore, but if I did, and Zine just graduated last year, if I had a kid in the school system, would I have a problem with his teachers telling him you cannot have your cell phone in class? And I think the answer to that is no, I would not have a problem with that. As long as you provide access to the web so that he could have those resources available to him. All right. Either that or teach everything out of a textbook, give everybody books to bring home like we used to, and this is the material we're going to learn, and you don't need to worry about looking other things up. But I will tell you this. What has amazed me here in the cell phone age with the world of podcasts and things like that is how little we're taught in school. And this is not an indictment of our school system. This is just in general. Having read textbooks at our high school, I went to a couple of colleges, more colleges than I should have, but going to colleges and looking at the different textbooks there, and then getting into the world of podcasts and listening to those podcasts about subjects that interest me. I'm a history buff. It is amazing what we are and are not taught. There are so many incredible things that happen, so many incredible historical events, historical people. Some we only scratch the surface, some we don't know anything about at all. So I believe that kids need exposure to that without the distractions that cell phones cause. So how does this bill address that? We shall see. But hopefully, hopefully there's a way to do that. Again, I didn't have a problem 20 years ago, 21 years ago with a cell phone ban in schools. I don't have a problem with it now. All right. If something happens and a teacher, a coach, administrator needs to get in touch with my family, they would be able to without my child calling. So I don't have a problem with it, but I would like to make sure that, my child, if he did not have access to his phone, that he had access to technology, and I believe probably they would. So, we have that. I think we're okay. Now, we're going to see what happens. The governor has not signed this yet. It's been approved in the legislature, but the governor hasn't signed it. So we'll see if that does in fact happen, and then we'll see what the fallout is, and we'll talk about that when it happens. But again, and look, I do not blindly follow what the legislature does. There's something in the legislature now that I want to talk about. We'll probably get to it next week. I don't want to get bogged down into tonight, but let me back up. I don't categorically disagree. I disagree with a big part of it. And I want to get into that. It has to do with law enforcement agencies releasing mugshots, arrest reports, that kind of information to media outlets. But we'll get into that later. We're not gonna get bogged down on that tonight. But I do not blindly agree with everything the legislature does. In fact, what I wish the legislature would do one year is go to Atlanta and pass no new laws. They don't have to. That's not what the legislature's primary objective is, to pass laws. It's to set the budget. We could cut out a lot of mess if our legislators would go to Atlanta, set a budget, and go back home. All right. But we get bogged down in all this other stuff. But the two issues we're talking about tonight, moving time zones to the Atlantic time zone and observe Atlantic Standard Time year-round, I'm in favor of. Bell-to-bell, cell phone bell for high school students, I'll give you 2 quick thumbs up. I agree with it. It's not a hill I would die on, let me put it that way. If they pass it, I'm fine with it. If they don't, I'm fine with it. But overall, I can tell you this: if my child was in school and they passed a bell-to-bell ban for cell phones, I would not protest it at all. I think the school system has resources in place to compensate for students not having cell phones. We're going to take a look at our tower cam, as enthralling as it is at night. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. A car accident can have serious consequences far beyond the initial crash. Your life and the lives of your loved ones can be turned upside down. Missed work, lost wages, totaled vehicles, and insurance companies that don't want to help. You need a law firm that will fight for you. You've come to the right place. Welcome back. our tower cam. Another beautiful shot of Douglas at night. Nothing to see. The weather's nice. Couple lights. These lights are always on. You see those two kind of bright lights in the trees? Every time we do a nighttime shot of our tower cam, those lights are always on. I don't know whose houses those are. If those are street lights, you got a road that kind of meanders back off of 206 back in there a little bit. I don't know what that is, but those lights are always on. We have never not turned our tower cam on at night and not seen those two lights shining very, very brightly. Not too many clouds in the sky tonight. Weather's good. Maybe I keep saying, maybe we're past the cold weather. I know we've got a week or so to go before we get to Easter. And we always have cold weather before Easter. Maybe we got that out of the way last week. Maybe we can move forward. I know everybody's sympathetic toward my animals and toward my reptiles, but it would be a whole lot easier if I didn't have to worry about some of this cool weather. All right. I like it warm where I can just let them be. I know you're all worried about that. You're all worried about the critters at home. And I appreciate your sympathy. I can feel it. I want to thank everybody for being with us here tonight. If anything breaks over the weekend, of course, we will be there, but maybe it will be a quiet weekend and we won't have much to talk about. Got a few sports stories we got to get to in the next couple of days. Big region showdown tomorrow night between the Coffee Trojans and the Houston County Bears. Coffee and Houston played a single game on Tuesday here. Coffee lost 4-1. Had opportunities to win. We had a few gifts that were presented to us that we did not capitalize on, but we hope to turn that around. It'll be big if we could take the doubleheader tomorrow night. We're playing up there in their place. They're a tough team. Some polls have them ranked number 1 in the state. In 5A right now, I believe they're number 2. They're a strong team. They're really good. Not quite as good maybe as they were last year. And we had a little bit of success. We had more success against Houston County last year than anybody else did in our region. So maybe we can pull off an upset and take 2 up there from them tomorrow. That would be big. That would be big. It looks like, we're getting late in the region schedule. It looks like no matter what happens, we're probably locked into a number 3 seed right now. A lot can happen, but the better teams still have some of the weaker teams to play. And it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for upsets among the other teams of the in the region. So, but maybe we can pull off an upset tomorrow night. That would be big for us. But either way, we're probably locked into a number 3 seed. But it would be nice to have 2 wins over Houston County if we're going to be a number 3 seed. Thank you for watching us. As always, we appreciate it. And again, if anything breaks, we'll check back in. If not, we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good weekend.